Thanks to all of you for having me here today. I know I'm standing between you and lunch, so I'm going to try to go fast. We're really excited about what we're doing. The title of my presentation is Creating a University Out of Whole Cloth. Some of you may understand what whole cloth is, but I'll explain it real quickly. You know, it used to be that cloth was very, very, very expensive, and so what would happen is that quite often you would get a hand-me-down garment and it would be cut down to fit you from someone else. And so creating something out of whole cloth was a really, really positive thing. It meant that you had you know, something new there. So let's see. No, let's do it this way. Okay. All of us have two educations, one which we receive from others and the most valuable which we give ourselves. That's John Randolph. It's one of my favorite quotes, especially around competency-based education, because in a way that's what we're doing is we're teaching our students to teach themselves. And that's such a valuable life experience for, I think, everyone. So I like to start with that quote. So why did we go to personalized learning at Northern Arizona University? It's a competency-based, of course. What we were seeing was that off campus we have about a third of our students who are off campus, and they are in online programs and in face-to-face programs in 36 locations around the state of Arizona. And we were seeing flat enrollment. It's an interesting phenomenon, and in fact I just got the numbers for this spring on enrollment. We are flat once again. We're up 11% in online enrollments, and we're down a commensurate amount in face-to-face enrollments. And as we saw that, we really felt that we needed to have a new approach that would allow our students to be, our largely adult students, to be successful. So, you know, one of the things that we're all facing, and it's something that Bruce talked about in his opening session, and that is the whole issue of affordability and accessibility. And what we wanted to do within this was to address especially the affordability issue. So about 3 years ago I started talking with our president, and we were trying to figure out, okay, what do we do next? My job was to start doing very extensive research to borrow things from other folks like Kentucky and from Western governors and from Empire State College and Excelsior, and so that's what I did. I went out and found what I thought were the best practices within the competency-based area. So this is our single description, one sentence that describes what we're doing with personalized learning. I'm going to point out specific parts of it. It enables motivated students. That's a very important part. This is not for everyone, as everyone's been saying. It is for students who are highly motivated. The next part that's important is high quality degree. We were not looking to cheapen anything. We were looking actually to probably be more rigorous than on-campus programs. More efficiently for us, meaning being able to deliver it more efficiently, but also more efficiently for the student, so that they could progress more quickly. Because as Patricia said, the real danger we know for all adult students is time, because the longer it takes them, the less likely they are to finish. And then at a lower cost, so, you know, and then of course customizing coursework to fit individual learning styles. This was really, and you know, some of you who are instructional designers will say there's no such thing as a learning style, but this kind of encompasses it in a way that most people understand what we're talking about. It's not necessarily an individual learning style like for everything that you do, you have only one style of learning, but it is a way of customizing it to fit those an individual's needs. And then, of course, the last part, previously acquired knowledge, that's what competency-based is all about. So the student experience, what does the student see? Well, it's totally self-paced, and it's all online. And they have mentor faculty, and those of you who are familiar with the WGU model, there are two sorts of mentor faculty in our case. There are mentor faculty who are responsible for helping a student through the process. They're not discipline mentor faculty. They're not talking about, they're not working with them in terms of their understanding of the material, but they're trying to deal with things like time management and in some cases just coaching them to be successful, because so many adult students are somewhat reticent about coming back to school. There's also mentor faculty who are in the disciplines. So if a student gets stuck, they have a mentor faculty member who will help them. And unlike the way, in some ways you can kind of think of the mentor faculty member and the way it works as, you could think of it as office hours, but in the way that we've really approached it with mentor faculty is we have a dashboard, and the faculty members are responsible for really following every student and being proactive with the student. So instead of the student having to be reactive, you know, this allows for the faculty member to get to them when they need the help. They start with a readiness assessment. It is a 3 to 4 hour test, and that readiness assessment is a way of determining whether they're a good candidate for competency-based programs. One, it figures out whether or not they have the communications capabilities, the quantitative capability, but it also looks at motivation sorts of issues. Again, we want those students, by the time they get in, to be successful. And that readiness assessment does another thing. What it does is it tells us when the student is, you know, where they have developmental deficiencies at a very granular level. So what we want to be able to do is to know exactly, this is the example I often use. If a student doesn't understand probability, they don't need to take a 15-week course. They need a module that will allow them to understand probability. And so at a very granular level, we want to be able to do that. So after they finish that readiness assessment, we have free developmental modules. This is before a student is enrolled, by the way. This is all something that they do before they get to that point. So the free developmental modules we see as a loss leader. Some people say, how can you do that? You know, the developmental part, you know, it's a real cost. And the answer is that we wanted to allow a student to work through the materials in the way that we would have them working through it when they actually got into the program, but at no cost. Will we have some students who take those developmental modules and then don't continue on with us? Yes, we know that that will be the case, but we think that's worth it. The curriculum is entirely interdisciplinary and prescribed. There's no electives. All of the courses are, well, actually, I get to that in a minute, so let's wait on that. And then the last part is multiple modalities for every concept. This is really a key part of what we think will allow our students to be successful, and that addresses different needs. You know, the way I like to explain this is it's almost like Googling something. When you want to know some information, you go online and you Google something. What you'll do is you'll look at something and say, no, I don't understand what they're talking about, or that's not what I wanted to learn about, or whatever. But you find within those searches that you do the materials that you need. It might be a video because, you know, that would work well for you. So that's what we're doing, is we want to provide a minimum of 3 and we hope 5 different ways for a student to learn every concept that they need to learn, because we don't want them to be left behind. So Patricia also talked about what we call predictive learning analytics, adaptive learning sorts of things. That's where we're headed. It's part of the reason why we went with Pearson as our partner on this project. We felt that their learning environment, their learning management system was most able to provide that predictive learning analytics that we wanted in place. There is credit for prior learning. Primarily that means things that are formal learning. We thought about doing a portfolio process for prior learning assessment and decided that that since we have the pre-assessments that allow students to test out of materials, if they really learn something in a more informal way, that's a much better way to prove it. And on top of that, portfolio assessment is very, very time consuming for the institution and very time consuming for the student to develop. So, so we use the pre-assessment process. The pre-assessment, much as Jay was talking, the student can test out of parts of a course or all of a course by taking the pre-assessment. There are interim assessments between different sorts of quizzes that are not graded, but they are intended for the student to give student feedback so that the student knows where they're at. There are then the final post-assessment. The student can take a post-assessment multiple times. In personalized learning, one of the approaches that we have is that we will never fail a student. All that can happen to a student is that they can give up. If they finish, if they think they have learned the course material and they take the post-assessment and they don't make at least an 86% on that post-assessment, they don't fail the course, they just go back and they study more. And I mean, that's what we do in real life, if you really think about it. You know, these high-stakes tests are kind of counterproductive from my perspective. And then finally, there are internships and service learning. It gives that the communication skills and other sorts of things. So we have lead faculty. Their job is, excuse me, to deconstruct current NAU courses down to learning concepts and outcomes. And so we take 3-hour credit courses, we break them down, and then we rebuild them as interdisciplinary courses, anywhere from 1 to 12 credit hours. And, you know, if you think about it, you know, often, you know, what we have undergraduates do is we have them take several courses, let's say 3 accounting courses, in order to have accounting, you know, really understand accounting. Why do we do that? Because that's the way we've always done it. We have them in 3-hour courses, right? But, you know, when you really think about it, why do we break them up like that? It's only because we have based everything on the credit hour. In this case, we want to put together things interdisciplinarily and in the chunks that make sense, not the chunks that are traditional. A lot of open educational resources used. We have one of the best digital libraries in the country because we've been doing distance learning for so long, for 4 decades. So we have a lot of material that we have there. And then the other thing that the faculty is responsible for is ongoing total quality management. Basically what they're doing is they're looking at a dashboard that allows them to see where students are having difficulty, and when they see that, they need to find new materials that will help the student understand that better. And so that's the job of the lead faculty. I thought I would just show up on the screen for a couple of minutes an integrated lesson from liberal arts. This is, I'll just kind of let you read through it a bit. The idea is that they work through different topics, and then mastery in this particular case, you notice it is not an objective test. It is a performance objective in this particular case. The business processes, they're very innovative and personalized. The student, like with Jay's approach, can start the program any day of the year. We have a subscription approach. It's $2,500 per 6 months. It's all inclusive, and that includes fees, materials, texts, whatever. You know, the university requires like a technology fee and all of that, but we've embedded it in this. It's not, you know, if you think about it, would you go to a store and here you have something that you want to buy, and it says, okay, the price of manufacturing was this, and the cost of shipping it to here was this. And I mean, no, really, you know, does that make any sense? We have these absolutely, from a consumer perspective, these crazy ways of pricing things that, oh, here's the price of the tuition, but if you add everything else on, you're going to be paying, including books, maybe 3 times that amount. And so we didn't want that. Financial aid will be available after we are approved by our accreditor and by the Department of Education. The subscription model is kind of interesting. For those of you who heard me yesterday, you know, I talked about some of the issues of different sorts of rules and regulations that we have. With the subscription model, if a student has something that happens to them, they don't get their money back, we just stop the clock and say, when you're ready to come back, you've got 3 months left on your subscription, you can come back anytime you want. It works for the military and everything else that needs to be there. So 2 transcripts, a traditional transcript and an enhanced transcript. The enhanced transcript is what an employer would want to know. An employer doesn't want to know that you've had 3 history courses. It means nothing to them, really. They want to know what you can do. Can you read? Can you write? You know, so we have an enhanced transcript. The traditional transcript, remember I said we started with 3-hour credit courses, and we deconstructed those. So once a student has completed those learning objectives that came from those 3-hour courses, we can re-aggregate them into a 3-hour course and give them a traditional transcript. It allows them to transfer to another institution if they decide that personalized learning isn't for them, and it also allows them to go to grad school more easily. The initial program, Small Business Administration, Computer Information Technology, and Liberal Arts. The liberal arts stands out to some people. It's a degree completion program. It's also the fact that there's a lot of liberal arts in the other 2 majors, so it was kind of a partial freebie. Aggressive timetable, we are planning on starting later this spring with a 500 student goal. That's dependent on the Higher Learning Commission, but they are finally working with us, which we're very pleased with. They were kind of quiet for a while, and we were a little concerned. We want to do 3 new programs in the 2nd year, master's degrees in the 3rd year, and we're looking to 8,000 students in 5 years. You know, if people say 8,000 students, that seems pretty extreme. We've done really, really extensive market research with prospective students. The response has been just overwhelming, because I think it's kind of like Garrison Keillor and Lake Wobegon. You know, everyone thinks they're above average, and so what were the issues and challenges that we've had? Well, first and foremost, you know, we've had lots of issues we've had to deal with internally, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But you know, first and foremost, it's the outside sorts of organizations that we've had more difficulty with. The Higher Learning Commission, our accreditor, they very much want to move forward with competency-based things. They just don't quite know how to do it. And on top of that, for those of you who have watched the accreditors closely, the Higher Learning Commission has been beat up a lot by Congress and the Department of Education, and they're a little gun-shy. But we are moving forward with them, and we think that, and they're telling us that we'll have this done yet here in the spring. Then we, in order to offer competency-based Title IV financial aid for competency-based, what you have to do is get the Department of Education approval, and it's an approval on the basis of every single program you want to offer. So you cannot just go in and get a blanket approval. Every time you have a new program, you have to go back to them and ask. Given the slowdowns with the first two, keeping momentum is a bit of a problem, because we originally wanted to start this January 1, and we would have pressed really hard to get that accomplished. But of course, if we can't move forward because of accreditation, we could not do that. Resistance. There are all different sorts of resistance that you run into. Sometimes it's a processing department like financial aid saying, we don't have any clue how to do this, and are you crazy, and it's going to cost, you know, $500,000. And then you have the faculty resistance as well. And in our case, remember I started out talking about creating a university from whole cloth. And what we decided to do was to try to create personalized learning kind of off to the side of the university, as opposed to trying to totally integrate it, because we knew that it would take years and years if we totally integrated it. If we kind of pulled it off to the side, we'd keep it there. Well, so we hired lead faculty that are new faculty. We will hire mentor faculty who are new faculty. We really put into place an entire new unit that is responsible for this. But of course, that means that it's not within the regular process, and some of the faculty didn't think that was such a good idea. So we've actually worked through those issues. We're in very good shape at this point. And in many cases, faculty are really excited about it. It's just the very traditionalists, those very loud folks who don't really get it, and on top of that, they're afraid that it may really be a problem for them. And that's what Bruce was talking about this morning. This, you know, the change of the faculty role is pretty extreme. Now, the faculty we've hired think it's a great idea because it's not anything added on, and they made the choice to do that. And then finally, things like student information systems. Student information systems are set up to deal with semesters, regular standard semesters. You try to start plugging in other stuff like starting every day, and the systems, they're just not made for it, and we all know how difficult it can be to make changes to student information systems to make things work. So, the politics of change. This is, for those of you who heard me yesterday, and just to kind of give you all information, yesterday I had a quote from Stalin and now one from Machiavelli. I just, you know, politics aside, I think that it's great. You know, there is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things, because the innovation has for enemies all those who have done well under the old conditions, read faculty, and lukewarm defenders and those who do well under the new. You know, I appreciate your time this morning. It looks like I'm 3 minutes and 30 seconds from being over my time, so thank you very much. I think it's lunchtime. Is it lunchtime?